Uh, Any other public comment or aware of anything?
I don't have any texts, Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Going to move on to presentations and reports. We've got our city administration report. Any questions for Mr. Brooks on the information that's there for the staff? Okay, move on next.
Brent also is trying to say something, Mayor.
Excuse me? You trying to say something, Brent?
My mic was muted, sorry. Is Bonnie still the animal control officer? She's listed, her position's listed on the city website, but she's listed as being someone who has an anniversary this month.
I saw her today out on a job, but she has given us notification that she's packing it up. She's going to retire.
She's going to retire at the end of the month, she told me a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But I think she has 29 years or something like that.
Wow. That's
Okay.
good.
Just wondering, I just saw her job advertised, and yet she's listed as being someone who
Yeah,
has
that's
an
why.
anniversary. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brent. Okay, then next we have a UDOT presentation. We'll have Kent Jorgensen here. Do you have anything on that, Mike? I think they're just coming to explain that new 5600 South interchange.
That's correct. They would desire to drive their presentation, Steve, for your notice, but if for some reason it doesn't work, they may ask you just to say next slide for them if they can't figure it out. So we'll hopefully they know what to do. But yeah, it should be Kent Jorgensen and Tom Roylance that will present.
You're assuming I can handle that? Is that what you're saying, Mike?
No, I just want to make sure they know how to do it. And if they can't figure it out, then they'll know to tell you when to turn the slides.
Do you have any questions on this at this point? Move on next to the consent items. Consent items this night are for the May 5th City Council work session. Also the May 5th City Council regular session and the May 5th strategic planning meeting that was held after the City Council meeting. Do you have any changes or corrections at this point?
Mayor, I had one.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell.
In the regular meeting minutes, when we're discussing Old Glory Days, the discussion about fireworks at Romer Park, it references Grover Park. And so that's probably just needs to be changed to the correct name.
Okay. Did you get that, Shaylee?
Yep.
That was a thumbs up.
Did she get it?
Yes, she did.
Okay, didn't see any thumbs. So. Okay, move on to the second consent item. Tonight we've got consideration to set a public hearing on June 16th, 2020 to receive and consider comments regarding the following. A, amending the Riverdale City budget for fiscal year 2019 through 2020 as needed. Adopting the Riverdale City final budget for fiscal year 2020 through 2021. C, proposed amendments to the Riverdale City Code, Human Resources Manual 1-7-2, salaries of City Council and Mayor, and 1F-6, salary of the Justice Court Judge. Item D, culinary water utilized by the city's general operations and the corresponding non-reciprocal interfund transfer to the city's water enterprise fund. Do you have any questions on those items for this meeting? I think those are all pretty cut and dry, some we do each year in May, some in June. Moving on next to the action items. Consideration of resolution 2020-09. This is to approve a development agreement with the DRH company for the development of land in the 550 West and Riverdale Road redevelopment area. Mr. Eggett, do you have comments for this meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll just give a quick background on this. Dee Hanson will join us obviously later during the main meeting, and what I say now will be equally reflective for the RDA board item because it's almost the exact same concept here. This document is something that Roger and Dee and myself have been working on for quite a while. I believe Dee mentioned to the RDA board that there was an agreement being worked on. This is the product of that effort. Dee's attorney, Wade Budge, drafted a lot of the language using a previous agreement that we at the city had already agreed on in a different RDA area of the city and modified it. We thereafter, when I say we, myself, Roger, and Dee, discussed quite at length the terms in the agreement and determined that it would be best to make two agreements, one that has city terms, one that has RDA terms. And so you'll see a reflected development agreement with the city and then an agreement to develop land with the RDA board. So the terms are unique to each entity and their responsibilities within the 550 West and Riverdale Road project areas. This will then allow the RDA and the RDA board to make decisions associated with some real estate efforts that Dee is trying to undertake for and on behalf of the city and the RDA board. So I think that's the long and short of it, Mayor. What you see in your packet is obviously the working copy reflective of some of the modifications that have since been made with guidance from Dee and Roger. And our city attorney, Steve Brooks, has looked at this agreement as well as the RDA board agreement and is comfortable with how they're currently presented to the city council and later to the RDA board. And with that, Mayor, I defer if there's any other questions for myself or Roger or Steve or whoever else is involved.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Eggett on this item?
Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilor Ellis.
I'd just like to compliment Mike and Steve on developing this document. It's really technical. You guys did a great job. I know you received some assistance, but with Roger out a lot of the time, you guys did a great job in drafting that document. It's really shows professionalism on your part.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. I think Roger helped a lot, even though he had to work from home. I think he was pretty involved in it. So thank you also, Roger. Thanks to all of you for that. Okay, move on to action item 2, consideration of ordinance 918 to approve subdivision request for the Old Mill subdivision located at approximately 4225 South, 700 West in Riverdale, is requested by Old Mill Partners, LLC. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you, Mayor. As you noted, the petitioner is Old Mill Partners, LLC. They're represented by Hugh Park and Lori Thurgood. Hugh Park will join us this evening if there are any questions or comments for him. This is a traditional subdivision site plan and plat review in a single-family residential R-1-8 zone. It came before the Planning Commission on April 14th, wherein the Planning Commission made a recommendation to City Council for approval, subject to resolving outstanding staff and engineering concerns. Those concerns have since been resolved to the city staff and city engineering's department satisfaction, and you can see those reports found in the packet. Obviously, the decision tonight can be to approve with requested modifications, table, or not approve with the appropriate findings of fact. Should it receive approval, the next step would be to do escrow or security agreement, get the plat prepared for signatures, finalization of some of the water shares and Sean Douglas's items noted on his review. And they could move forward, record it, and start the pre-construction if they finalize the few things outstanding for Sean's department and his need, which is pretty typical. The property was previously owned by a religious organization and is otherwise sat vacant. And the Old Mill Partners have recently acquired this property from the previous owners. Under the general plan guidance, this property, being that it was once designated to be a religious assembly location, is showing as an institutional property. However, at the next general plan update, we would update that to reflect residential low density, and clearly all the properties surrounding this do reflect residential low density, so it's in complete compliance with the general plan at that point, and we don't see any concerns that way. I think for the sake of time, Mayor, I'm going to leave it at that, but we can talk a little bit more in detail during the main meeting if there's a need to do that and review some of the comments, and I defer for any questions or comments at this time.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Mike on this item? Mr. Ellis?
Yeah. Do we have a start date on when they're going to do this, or is this still up in the air? And
That's a good question. They're typical in that they want to start as soon as they can, as most developers do with residential. If I had to guess, maybe 2 months, Brent. By the time they got everything accomplished and everything recorded and they're ready to dig in the ground, 6 to 8 weeks, probably a fair estimate.
Okay, one other question. There's 2 lots that face 700 West. Are they going to be part of the subdivision, or are they going to have their own separate driveway? And is that a conflict with the main entrance to the development?
The one corner lot on the north side is a detention basin. It's not a residential lot. It's the detention basin lot. And on the south side, they will have the home fronting 4225, and then they'll have a driveway onto 700 with an accessory building. And they'll meet the side yard and front yard setbacks for those structures. That's their plan.
And it's the same zoning as the Coleman Farm development, right?
About 8,000 square foot minimum lots, yes. Yep. And that's already established zoning for that property site.
Any other questions?
One other question. The lots are all different sizes. Are they going to be standard pattern, standard model of development for the homes, or are they going to be different sizes?
I think they'll somewhat let that be custom. You could clearly ask Mr. Park later this evening if he has an idea of what types of homes. But when I say traditional subdivision, this is going to be a traditional type of home development pattern with what's kind of around it, maybe with newer looks and styles. But and they do recognize that there's a higher water table, and you'll see a letter in the packet that reflects their awareness of that, and they would have crawl space or obviously elevated basements should they be desired to meet the geotech requirement of that water table.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Ellis, you're just a little bit hard to hear. You might be aware of that.
Okay, I'll be closer to the mic.
Okay, maybe speak up just a hair.
Sorry about that.
Okay, any other questions on this topic? Move on next to action item number 3. This is consideration and action to cancel or modify Old Glory Days events and celebrations. Mr. Brooks.
This is just a repeat from 2 weeks ago. We just didn't have that worded right on that agenda, but we just moved forward. I mean, we got to make decisions, based on the corona pandemic and what kind of activities we can do. There have been slight movements since we met 2 weeks ago, but I don't think it rises to the level that changes our thoughts that we really pretty much have to shut everything down. I don't know how we can really pull it off and do it safely and abide by all the guidelines. So, I think our recommendation as staff going in tonight to the council is just to recognize that, and we cancel things and move forward at this point.
Thank you. I was in a meeting last Friday with the county mayors and commissioners. I think pretty well all of the cities in Weber County have canceled their celebrations with the exception of Ogden. Last I heard, they hadn't canceled the 24th. And also Plain City. Plain City hasn't canceled theirs. Their mayor was at the meeting, and he said they would make that decision on June 30th on their 4th of July celebration. So we probably won't. I'm sure Rich would appreciate if we would do that. Wait till June 30th, huh, Rich? Yeah, it'd be good. So,
If we wait until June 30th, Mayor, it'll be an interesting celebration.
yes, it would. Yeah. Sure it would, so. All right, moving on to action item number 4. This is consideration to open Ritter Drive to two-way traffic at the west end following completion of the Phase 2 upgrade project. Mr. Brooks, do you have any comments for this meeting?
Not a lot. I mean, we can save it for downstairs, but basically everybody knows what this is. This is what we were in here 2 weeks ago for, to consider what we're going to do. We've recently spent, I think, during the last couple of years, during those 2 phases, Sean could correct me, but I think close to $1.5 million to upgrade that, get the sidewalks in and change those, a lot of that thing to get it up to where it could handle greater increases of traffic. And so that's what we're here for. This decision was made back in 2010, I believe, by that city council to close that far west end to one-way traffic. And we just need to reevaluate that and decide what we're going to do.
Okay, any questions or comments for this on this topic? Mr. Ellis?
I received a call from a couple of constituents that were concerned about this. They said that they received a private text saying that if we opened Ritter Drive, that it would increase the traffic by close to 500%. I was wondering if there's been any traffic study done or where this information came from that was sent to the residents.
I can have Chief Brinkman address that a little bit. There has been no studies. I mean, the problem we have is until that opens, we're not going to have anything accurate. I mean, all we can do is guess at this point. So, but Officer Brinkman did provide some data that he had as far as our camera goes up there, and he can get into a little bit more detail downstairs or in our next meeting if you have questions in regard to that. But the short answer is there's nothing that until we have an open road, we wouldn't be able to predict that. It's all speculation.
Because it appears that most of the problem is traffic enforcement. We've had a water box on that property or along Ritter Drive since I was 12, and it doesn't matter how many cars are there, it's how fast the people are going up and down that road. Now that it's widened, I think that will help, but I think traffic enforcement is one of the issues that a lot of the residents that I talk to are concerned with.
Okay. Any other comments for this meeting?
Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Arnold.
that information actually came from me. So I'll go into this a little bit in the next meeting. But so the previous council, there was a traffic study done back before the Ritter Drive was closed, and that information should be available somewhere. That's one of the things that we should be looking for. They were looking at about 3,500 cars a day back then. And so that's where those numbers are from, the numbers that Chief Brinkman gave us. But there is a traffic study out there. And if we look in the minutes back in 2009, we'll be able to find those.
2004, Ellen, I believe, was that traffic study. I've actually got a copy of it. So.
Okay. I know they were just using it for 2009 is when the road was actually closed.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. So we do have a copy of that. If any council members who want to look at it, let me know and I'll get it to you. That was, I can't remember Mike Keggett, do you remember the name of that traffic study? I can't remember who did it. But,
I don't remember, Mayor.
probably doesn't matter. So,
Mayor,
Mr. Worthen.
I think the study was Riverdale City overall, if I'm correct. Alan, I don't know if you looked at it. Sounds like you have. But I think it was overall a study of traffic within the entire city. And Ritter Drive is a part of that. I don't think it was specific to Ritter Drive, but it does talk about traffic on most minor and major collectors within the community. I'm not 100% sure on that, but
No,
maybe.
and I believe that's true with the traffic study, but they also did quite a number of studies with the same type of thing that we have there now, collecting the amount of cars, speeds, all that kind of stuff that the council in 2009 was actually looking at back then. And I think we have that information, and I think we should get it. I mean, it's, to say we don't have that information from back then. I mean, we can take that information from 2009 or just before that and apply the population growth to South Weaver Roy and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of data out there that we can actually look at.
Yeah, I just want to be specific that it was for Ritter. It was for the entire community. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
True. And I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, 2004 was for the entire city. So, any other questions or comments on item 4? Okay, move on next to discretionary items for this work session. Do we have any discretionary business? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn the work session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Work session has been adjourned. Okay, it's 6 o'clock or just shortly after. I'm going to go ahead and we'll go right into our city council meeting. I'd like to welcome you to our city council meeting this evening, Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. For the record, all city council members are present, as are members of the staff. We welcome anyone that's visiting with us, members of the public. We understand there are some here tonight, but we're glad to have you with us, and we look forward to any comments you might have. I've asked, would ask, Shaylee, is there a sign-in sheet down there? If you're here and there's a sign-in sheet just outside the door, we'd ask you to sign in if you would, please. That's important. We keep a record who attended the meeting. So, going to move on next to the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Councilor Hilton if he would lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Please stand with me and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This time, we normally take a moment of silence in our city council meeting. We would like to do that this evening, and as we take a moment of silence, we'd ask you to remember those who are serving in our military, those who are defending our many freedoms, and putting themselves in harm's way. We would ask you to remember our first responders, our police, our firefighters, those that protect us on a daily basis. Might also remember the health professionals. They're going the extra mile with this pandemic, and maybe remember them in your thoughts. Also ask you to remember our city council as they make decisions this evening. They might have studied the issues and make the decision that's best for those who live in our community. We'll now take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Move on to our public comment. We have some with us here this evening. I'll just mention public comment. Is there a microphone down there for them to speak? I'm not down aware how that is. So,
Yeah, there's a microphone, and then I'm just going to have them come up to the podium and use the computer so that way you can see them and they can talk about it.
super good. And we would ask them to state their name when they come forward. We'd ask them also to limit their time to 3 minutes if they would. And if there's any on the same topic with similar concerns, maybe you get together on those, maybe eliminate some of the individual speakers. So the time is now yours for public comment. We do have a phone number, and an email and a phone number to text, and you can send any concerns you might have, any public comments, and send those in even during the meeting. And ones we have beforehand, before the meeting progresses during this public comment period, we'll go ahead and read those. The others will read at the end of the meeting, any that we get during the meeting. So.
Mayor, if I could say something here too, in between each speaker, we've directed Shaylee to sanitize everything because they're actually using her computer and her microphone. So not only will she be nearby, I mean, we've got her a safe distance away, but in between each one of those, I know it's going to look a little tacky and a little weird. She'll be down through a little Lysol can, but if we could have a little break in between each one of those so she can take care of that too, we would appreciate it.
That's great. That's good you're doing that. So I'm sure those here will appreciate it. Time is now yours for public comment.
Let me do this. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Bear, for the record. My wife and I moved to Riverdale over 4 years ago, and we love the community. We noticed a definite increase in traffic during a short period of time we had here, and we have some concerns about the opening of River Drive to two-way traffic. Very few people appear to be doing the speed limit, and residents only have a very limited time to merge in and out of traffic as it is right now. With the addition of the new development, there are a lot of children that are crossing the roads, and it's very concerning with that combination. For the 26 years preceding our move to Riverdale, we lived in 20 different places, and I've learned that uninformed decisions end up in bad outcomes, and that those decisions are harder to be reversed when those decisions compared to those decisions that were more well-informed. I just have a couple questions. What benefit does this change have to the taxpayers of Riverdale? And what studies, if any, and we sat here while you were the prelude to the meeting, were done that indicate that this is the right thing to do? Has this data been used in this decision? I'm learning that some of it hasn't. Is this data currently open to the public? Is this more of a benefit to the shoppers coming from Roy and those coming off the interstate? One last question. Where do the voting members live? No addresses, but which side of Riverdale Road? I think this is important due to that this impact may have on each of you, your families, and your neighborhood. Has the residents of Ritter Drive and its tributaries been interacted with? And speaking with a half dozen residents, they haven't heard from anybody. I recommend that any vote that was intended to take place tonight be postponed, as this has an appearance that interests that affect the community first and foremost be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Brian McDonald. I live at 5264 South, 1250 West, just to the east of where Coleman Farms used to be. I've lived in that house approximately 22 years. And during that time, I lived there before when Riverdale Road was, or when Ritter Drive was open both ways to the traffic. And I've got just a couple concerns real quick. One, when it was open to traffic on Saturdays, when all the shoppers would come down and up the road, and it was open, the traffic going up the road would back up to the point where people would cut through by our house because they would realize, because at the top of the hill, it's hard for people to get out onto the frontage road, so that they would just stack up there and in both directions. That's the first thing. Second thing is, maybe not every winter, but on a vast majority of winters, due to the banking of the Ritter Drive right there, where the new housing development is, cars would constantly be down in Howard Coleman's field, and sometimes they had to get help getting out. Other times they would just drive through and let themselves out, but they'd go down over the bank. So I'm just worried that during the winter time, we're not going to have a car in Howard's field. We're going to have a car in somebody's living room if we open that up. Second of all, there are a lot of kids. There is a whole lot more traffic in the area right now. And I just would ask that you guys, as Mr. Bear said, maybe take and do some data-driven decisions, as well as what's good for the whole city. Because basically, that road is used by people coming from Roy and Clearfield and et cetera. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Jeez. Pretty good with that.
Hi there, Mr. Mayor. I'm Lorene Faust. I live on 1250 West. We've lived there 37 years. And of course, we've seen a lot of changes over the years. One where we had such a narrow road going by our house with all the traffic that was on there and people passing and, driving fast on a one-lane road. And the traffic that we've seen increase on Ritter is a lot of traffic. I've seen people get so impatient that they pass one another on the road on the bends, and with the little kids that I see, which we haven't had around there for a long time, but little kids and dogs and bikes and balls and what have you, they're all over the streets now, and all of the houses up there aren't filled yet. So that means more traffic and more people and more kids, I'm sure, will be a part of it. And yes, you've spent a lot of money. Riverdale has spent a lot of money for that road. As well, they've spent a lot of money for Riverdale Road. And what we had before was a narrow two-lane road. Now we have it safe. I still don't feel it's safe for the people that live on Ritter, because it takes them, it's hard for them to get out of their driveway because they have to back out. And by the time you come around some of those corners, you have about 2 seconds to make a decision when somebody's backing out. So I think for a safe environment, I think we would really like to see that road stay the way it is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Scott Williams. I live on 1345 West, 5377 South, just off Ritter Drive. And to add to the previous gentleman's comments, the first, as speed and safety, the first thought that came to my mind when I heard this could possibly happen was you're just creating a long bobsled run with a running start. And we're going to see many cars off into houses and fields because the speed is going to increase. just by having them come in halfway down this hill, you're able to control your speed, but starting at the top and coming down, you're just creating speed, and it'll be a huge safety hazard. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Scott.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. My name is Kurt Bloxam. I've lived just off of Ritter Drive for 37 years. And like all these other people have said, I think that you ought to go out and at least do a poll of the affected community in that area before you make a decision that's going to affect us and possibly just be a thoroughfare for other people trying to get from one point to another. I only live 2 houses off of Ritter Drive, and I've been honked at trying to get out of my driveway and just get going in one direction. And the people come around that corner with the reduced traffic at speeds and just the quantity of cars that I get honked at constantly. And like some of the other people have commented on, there's little kids everywhere around there. And with the traffic the way it is right now, even at a very, very reduced rate, and you're planning on opening this up to a significantly higher rate, you're going to have some problems. There's little kids that go down the hills that are on the new subdivisions, and they don't even stop when they go out into the road. And I don't think some of these kids are going to have a chance with some of the cars that go up and down these roads. We do have a new young boy that's got some disabilities, and I think they live right on the corner, and I think they could be mainly affected too. So I just ask you to do a survey of the people that's going to be affected before you make it convenient for others. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Kurt. I mentioned to Kurt, we did do, before it was closed, there was surveys went out to all the public. There was town hall meetings held. And, this was quite an item here about 10 years ago, but it has been, the public was surveyed at that time, so they still have a pretty good idea at least how they felt at that time. So.
Hello, my name is Josephine Torres. I live up on West Ritter Drive. I think we've been there for 10 years now, and for that duration, my son and I would walk to the school. We realized we didn't have sidewalks. It was difficult at the time, but we were willing to go that direction. The unfortunate thing is the speed and the oncoming vehicles that would cut through that road would just nearly run you over. So it really wasn't even the issue of the sidewalk as much as it was the vehicles that were going through that area. I arrived after the closure of the road. I can't imagine what it was before. It's consistently always traffic. Hill Air Force opens their gates, as you probably are aware of, occasionally throughout the summertime, and that backs up and makes it very difficult with that hillside, like one of my neighbors have said, and it makes it very difficult to get in and out of our driveways. My teenage son learning how to drive was very difficult for him. Also, that was something I was continuously worried about with opening that road and that speed going through. And we have new families that are living there now, a young family with children actually. And I also had a situation a few years back, which I'm sure one of the officers can attest to that, where a child was actually in the middle of the road had it not been for one of the driver that was in front of me, who happened to slow down because was very familiar with the road. In fact, for a very long time, people would drive by and honk, and that was a constant thing when I first moved there, and I didn't know why people would honk. It was because when they're coming through that hill, coming up that hill, that sunlight is in your eyes, that you had to honk just because you had to drive by memory rather than by sight. And so I can just imagine all the other families that have been there before me and were probably very, very happy when they did close it. And at first I was upset about it when I first moved there. But once I was there, I had realized why they closed it and was very happy that they had closed it. So we've never complained about no sidewalks, and I'm very happy that they're doing it, but not at the expense of making it convenient for other people and more dangerous for us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josephine.
It looks like there's no more. Do you want me to read the letters?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. Just the ones that haven't spoken.
I have text messages as well after Shaylee's done.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just making sure none of them that came today. I had one. So no. Okay. The first one is from Tessie Smith. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Smith, and I have been a resident at 1459 Ritter Drive, Riverdale, Utah since May 2016. My wife and I are concerned about opening the road at the west end as a two-way and it presenting a safety issue. Open up the road both different directions all the way down would invite people to use a direct route to and from opposite sides of town, increasing both the amount of traffic and the speed limit. Even during the construction, people have been driving faster than the set speed limit. The increased traffic and speed limits would make it harder for everyone to back out of their driveway due to the limited line of sight before entering the road. Also, having driven the road many times in the evenings and being blinded by the sun coming up the hill, more traffic and higher speed limits would make this extremely dangerous for those entering the road and not being able to see what is in front of you. Furthermore, there have been times that the school buses would stop to let kids off, and I would have had to stand in the road just to block people from driving around them. With this traffic increase, especially during early mornings and evenings, this would make it more dangerous for children and the time it takes to pick them up or drop them off. The fact that there is a stop sign at both ends of the road with the co-joining roads have right-of-way prevents the flow of traffic to be consistent. I work on base and it takes maybe 20 extra seconds to drive down and around to 1500 West to get home. For most of it, it would be faster to hit Riverdale Road to get to the other section of town unless they live on Ritter Drive. I appreciate you taking the time to consider my comments on this matter with reopening Ritter Drive to a two-way at the end of the West Street. Jason Smith. Okay. This one is from Angela Jacob. I have a friend that her backyard touches Ritter Drive in the past, and I have seen proof of cars crashing into backyards. I would vote to keep the traffic down and to leave it one way and keep families safe that have children that play in these backyards. Thank you, Angela. Okay, this one's from Chantel Gratzeet. Good afternoon. I just wanted to reach out and say how I would like Ritter Drive to stay one way. We recently built our home along that road and did so because of the quiet neighborhood. By making it a two-way road, it's going to increase the traffic tremendously. I would love to continue enjoying my backyard without thousands of cars driving by. Please let me know if you have received this email and will take this into consideration. Thank you. This one is from Quinn Carlinzi. To whom it may concern, I'd like to take a minute and voice my opinions as it relates to Ritter Drive. I heard that a decision is being made as to whether or not Ritter Drive will be a two-way at the frontage road or remain one-way. I live 6 doors down from Ritter Drive on 1345 West. I am concerned that there will be a significant increase in traffic. If it were a two-way street from the frontage road, it will create a thoroughfare that will send thousands of cars through our growing neighborhood. There are 40 more homes recently built that have brought many young families with small children. An increase in traffic combined with young children at play is a recipe for disaster. The privacy fences that have been installed have decreased visibility around the corners. Although the speed limit is currently 25 miles per hour, it is rare that cars travel that slowly. Currently, cars will come down the hill so quickly that I have to take extra caution when turning west on Ritter Drive. I also have 5 children who drive. It makes me very nervous for their safety if traffic increases and speeds stay as they are. I worry about the time frames when traffic would be heavy. I'm sure that the afternoon traffic would be unbearable. The base is in addition to typical rush hour traffic. It would make Ritter Drive congested. My wife works in Roy, and although it would be nice for her to have a two-way street at disposal, we would both rather keep it one way and spend a few extra seconds to drive around and to keep the neighborhood safer. We appreciate all the work that you do to make Riverdale City a wonderful and safe place to live. Respectfully, Quinn. So this is from John Anderson. I feel you have already made up your minds to open, but I will state my case. I have lived at the bottom of Ritter Drive for 34 years. I have seen the traffic both ways. I absolutely do not want it to be open for the following reasons. 1. I have asthma. Vehicle emissions make me cough. Since we get less traffic, Ritter Drive is as a one-way. My coughing is under control. I am outside much of the day, and because I care for a garden, fruit trees, and flower beds, I really have noticed a difference. 2. The noise caused by the extra traffic takes away my peace. This is a residential area. There is absolutely no reason to bring traffic down through a residential area. It's a conduit to business that we already have on Riverdale Road. We can't open our windows at night to get cool breeze without a motorcycle or a loud truck driving the middle of the night. Right now, they are forced to go around to the city as it should be. Members of the council who vote to open Ritter and don't live here don't have any idea of how annoying all the traffic is when Ritter Drive is open both ways. It's like politicians in the east thinking the west needs wolves. You don't live here, so you don't know. You wouldn't route extra traffic down your own street, now would you? Be honest. 4. I feel you want to open Ritter Drive to accommodate South Weaver and Roy traffic. Why would you sell your own citizens? Again, it comes down to quality of our own life. 5. I know people complain about the time to go down the road to Larry H. Miller's to access Ritter Drive, but have you ever driven it and timed it? It's seconds. A few seconds for quality of life. We are I want it now society. We don't like to wait, so driving around those for a few seconds seems a huge imposition to some, but is it really? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I do feel like David up against Goliath. I hope that this is not the case and that you can reason and side with both people it affects the most, the citizens of Riverdale, taxpayers, and voters. Thank you. This one is from Steve Flinders. Dear Riverdale City, my name is Steve Flinders. I live on the corner of 1345 West and Ritter Drive. It is my understanding the city is considering reopening eastbound traffic up on the frontage road of the freeway. Now more than ever, I think it would be a mistake. With the improvements that we have made to Ritter Drive, cars are speeding even faster than before. Even before the eastbound closure. My house and yard have been hit several times in the past by speeding and distracted drivers. This is a residential area, and even more so with the new housing development across the street. The traffic is obviously coming from and going to South Weaver. If eastbound traffic is reopened and allowed to turn onto Ritter Drive, it could result in great hazard. Ritter Drive has twists and turns all the way down the hill with a very short line of sight. With not reopening Ritter Drive Hill to move more traffic. I hope you will carefully consider not reopening Ritter Drive Hill to more traffic. Thanks for your consideration, Stephen Flinders. Okay, this is from Shauna Flinders. Dear Riverdale City, my name is Shauna Flinders. I live on the corner of Ritter Drive, 1340 1345 West. I understand that it is proposed that Ritter Drive be reopened to eastbound traffic. I think it would be a huge mistake to open this residential road to the kind of heavy traffic that would be flowing through the neighborhood. With new improvements to Ritter Drive, it is already faster and more dangerous to residents. This area just recently added more residential properties with the Coleman Farms project and needs to be less dangerous traffic, not more. I definitely don't see how making this main thoroughfare to South Weaver benefits Riverdale or its residents. The curves of this road, our limited line of sight, combined with speed, make this a tragedy waiting to happen. The house that we currently live in has been hit several times in previous years before Ritter Drive was wisely closed to eastbound traffic. We have children whose bedrooms are on the side of the house in danger of being hit again. Not to mention a gas meter in danger of being struck by out of a control car. Given the dangers and lack of real benefit to Riverdale residents, I hope you will rethink opening Ritter Drive to eastbound traffic as it poses a horrible risk to my home, family, and guests, including my grandchildren, and it can have a tragic consequence for this neighborhood. This one is from Janice Deschamps. My name is Janet. I have lived on Ritter Drive for 30 years. My children grew up here, and now some of my grandchildren live on Ritter Drive, and the rest of them frequently visit. Safety is my main concern, and I realize that it may be an inconvenience for some of us, myself included, to have the west end of Ritter closed, but well worth the safety of the children and the citizens driving along this beautiful street. I appreciate all the city has done to help keep it safe with closing of the west end of the new improvements. I know that Ritter Drive situation has been a very divisive subject for years, but the decision to close the west end to two-way traffic has been very successful in my opinion. Since the studies were done 10 years ago, we have the additional traffic from schools, cars, and motorcycle dealerships, and a whole new subdivision. I am concerned about the amount of traffic that reopening the west end will incur. But I'm more concerned about the speed of the traffic. People tend to drive way too fast on Ritter when they're heading uphill, but have a more difficult time keeping their speeds down when they are going downhill. If we open the road to eastbound traffic, that is a lot more downhill speeders. The other concern is that the sun in the evenings. If any of you have driven Ritter Drive when the sun is setting in the west, you know what I am talking about. You can be totally blinded by the sun, and with the widening of the street, we now have cars parked on the side of the streets and oncoming traffic. It could be a disaster. I realize that the plan is to open the west end when phase 2 is completed, but I ask that if you do, to please keep the speed limit at 25 miles per hour and apply whatever traffic calming measures you can to keep our children and our citizens safe. Thank you. This one is from Melissa Carey. I am writing this email with concern over safety on Ritter Drive. As we all know, Ritter Drive has changed dramatically over the last several years. My concern always has and always will be for the safety of the residents of this community. We have seen a steady increase of traffic on this road with the added businesses, schools, car dealerships, and daycare. We now have the added housing development and care facility being built and have not yet seen the impact that those will have on the traffic. The speed limit is not being obeyed at 25 miles per hour. I have heard that there is a possibility that the speed limit will be increased on Ritter Drive with the completion of the new project. Please, I beg you to not even consider this. This is a neighborhood. We have so many children living and playing along this road. Many residents of the community use this street for walking and cycling. We have been told all along that the traffic calming measures were part of the plan for this street, but have yet to hear what those will be. I know the plan has been to reopen the west end of Ritter Drive with the completion of the road and the traffic calming measures. I strongly urge you to rethink this decision. We continue to have car after car disregard the road closed signs to travel eastbound, as well as driving through the construction zone, dirt at high speeds. The sun in the evening hours traveling west on Ritter Drive makes it a very unsafe situation. It is near impossible to see in front of your car. I was nearly hit by a woman just the other day. She had rounded the round closed sign, heading westbound, and at the sunset she realized that she could not see and that she was in a construction zone. She quickly tried to turn her car and narrowly missed the front end of my car as I was slowly traveling east. This is not the first time that this has happened. We also have a problem with people getting out onto the freeway Park Drive, traveling west in the evenings at the rush hour. It can have cars backed up all the way to 1500 West. I fear that the west end being reopened is going to cause Ritter Drive to once again become the shortcut. Please think about the safety of the residents and the children first when making this decision. Thank you. Okay, this one is from Jessica Black. To whom it may concern, I'd like to express my opposition to opening Ritter Drive going both ways off Freeway Park. I live off Ritter Drive and I have 3 small children. I feel opening the road both ways is going to add a lot of unnecessary traffic in the area. With new families moving in and new homes being built right off Ritter, adding traffic will definitely devalue the area. Let's try to keep Riverdale small and comfortable without loud traffic going through our quiet neighborhoods. Thank you for listening. Okay. This one is from Leah Hansen. I am Leah Hansen. I live with my sister, Linda Grossen, in the Richmond American neighborhood at the corner of Ritter Drive in 1500 West. My daughter is buying the house right on the corner of Ritter in 1500, and 2 of my grandchildren will be living there. I have loved the convenience of being able to drive west on Ritter to access the Freeway Park Drive, to access I-15 at 5600 or 1900 West in Roy. I look forward to doing so again, but to have Ritter Drive opened eastbound from Freeway Park Drive to 1050 would be a dangerous move. The corner of 1500 and Ritter is busy already. There is so much traffic that is eastbound and flies around the corner and down 1500. Opening Ritter Drive eastbound would compound that problem if the traffic from Roy and from the base were able to turn onto Ritter and fly down the road from that direction also. I am also concerned about increasing the speed limit to 35 from 25. Many cars speed already. If we increase the speed limit, they will just feel they can go even faster. I, for one, appreciate the speed limit warning sign, and it lets me know when I am exceeding the 25-mile-an-hour limit. And it reminds me to slow down, which I do immediately. Please consider the wishes of the residents who live on this road. Please help us protect our families while looking at the home on the corner. The last 10 motorcycle riders came flying around the corner westbound from Ritter to 1500. There was a truck in the middle of them. As they came around the corner, those behind the truck passed over the double yellow line to contact their fellow riders. They were far surpassing the speed limit. Please help us make this road and corner safer by not reopening it into eastbound direction and increasing the speed limit. Please read this letter in council meeting. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, this one is from Candace Gordon. Good morning, City Council. I live at 5241 South, 1250 West, Riverdale, Utah, in the Coleman Farms area. I would like to know if there are previous drive studies done on the roadway when it is open. The road is very busy, winding, and has blind spots. The neighborhood has acquired at least 20 young children under the age of 10. As is, if you have a 3-second reaction time from one straightaway to a bend, if the traffic gets more congested and the cars continue to not be familiar with the roads, I fear there will be a catastrophic injury. Please reconsider not opening this back up at this time. Thank you, Candace. Those are all the ones that I have printed.
We had the text from Rich, Mayor. He probably should read those now.
Yeah, are you through, Shayla?
Yeah, I'll read the last ones at the end because I just got another one. So we can just read those at the end if you want.
Okay. Go ahead, Rich, if you would, the text messages.
Okay, these texts have been coming in pretty fast, and so I've missed some of the other public comment. I will read the names first. If it's been said already, let me know. I'm trying to keep track of it all. The first one is Darcy Kynaston. She's at 5253 South, 1250 West. And she says, please consider families and children walking on sidewalks before reopening Ritter Drive. My son has autism and doesn't understand the danger of cars on the road, and reopening will just increase chances of accidents with more cars and increasing speeds. The next one is Wendy and Philip Laturza. I don't have an address. They say, we would like Ritter Drive to remain one direction at the top. As a resident off Ritter Drive, we fear that opening up two-way traffic would increase the traffic and potentially dangerous conditions which we saw previously. Cars off the sides of the road, cars jumping the curb. There are many children crossing Ritter, and an increase in traffic would endanger them. We would like people to continue to use Riverdale Road and leave Ritter Drive as a residential road, not a thoroughfare to Target, Walmart, and South Weaver Drive. Thank you. The next comment is McLean Arnold at 5378 South, 1345 West. Keep Ritter closed. The next one is Kristen Arnold at 5378 West, 1345. I think they mistyped the address. 5378 South, 1345 West. Keep Ritter as usual. Do not open. The next one is Rebecca Carlinci, 5374 South, 1345 West. I'm concerned about the likelihood of substantially increased traffic if we change to two-way traffic on Ritter Drive. As a resident that uses this road daily and commutes to work as a school teacher in Weaver School District, I vote no on two-way traffic. Then Zachary DeLong, 1356 West, 5425 South. We would like to vote against opening Ritter Drive. I've only lived here 2 years, but on countless occasions, I've had to yell at children on bikes that are attempting to cross Ritter. My yelling is to warn the children of oncoming traffic. It's not safe right now, and it'll be even more dangerous for children and adults alike. Ritter Drive westbound, there are many drivers going over the speed limit. There's a blind curve where I see many drivers nearly getting hit by oncoming traffic on a regular basis, including myself and my family. And my last one is from Kim DeLong, 1356 West, 5425 South. We're very concerned about opening up Ritter Drive, as it is now we almost get hit daily. Crossing out of the neighborhood onto Ritter is dangerous. If we have more traffic, we'll see more accidents. It literally terrifies me when I see young kids trying to cross on bikes. Something needs to be done now. We need a traffic light or flashing speed sign so people slow down coming up the hill. I can't even imagine if you open the road how many more accidents we will see. And that's all I've received.
Thank you, Rich. Okay. We'll move on next to our city administration report. Mr. Brooks.
I don't have anything in addition to add to that. It's all in there and listed, and everything's going well and busy and crazy. We actually we'll have some upcoming changes. I can cover that kind of just in discretionary, just kind of at the end to give you some updates, but that's kind of outside of the administration reports. So if you have any questions on any of those, we could answer.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the UDOT presentation for the 5600 South interchange and I-15. Ken, are you with us, or Tom?
Yeah, this is Tom. I am here. I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to present our 5600 South project to you and your council. I'm wondering if our Lochner folks, are you guys on?
Tom, this is Gene. I'm on.
Okay. Is Scott on? So I'll just go ahead and maybe I'll just introduce my team. So I'm the project manager for UDOT for the 5600 South project, and this project does impact a portion of Riverdale. That's why we were interested in coming to present to you tonight. We've hired Lochner to do the environmental study for us. It's an environmental assessment. Scott Lucas, he's our PM with Lochner. Gene, if you can see Gene on the screen, he is our designer. Our environmental specialist is Dana Holmes. And Kent Jorgensen, he's the one that's he does our PI for us, and he's done a lot of the communication of organization to have us on here tonight. Just waiting for Scott. I believe we have a presentation to put up on the screen.
Yes.
Scott or somebody else? Oh, there he is.
If I could jump in here just quickly, Tom. I'm kind of controlling this, and as near as I can tell, it only allows me to list one person as a presenter. So if you'll tell me who that is, then I'll designate that person at that time. and listed as the name that's showing up on the screen, because I won't know them, so.
Is that you, Scott? Do you have it there?
Yeah, I'll be the presenter. So you see my name or,
Looks like it's under S. Lucas.
S. Lucas?
Mhm.
All right, we'll have you in just a second.
But maybe as you're putting that up, I can maybe talk a little bit about our project. And one of the first slides you'll see is the study area. And you know, most of the project is focused on improving 5600 South in Roy. We're going from 3500 West in Roy. We're going to do a widening, and Scott will talk more about that. But then it goes all the way east to include I-15 interchange and into Hill Air Force Base. We do have portions of 1900 that we have gone to the north of 5600 to Riverdale Road, just so we can understand the traffic impacts there. We include the Riverdale Road I-15 interchange, and also as a interest, well, Riverdale Road would be interest for Riverdale as well, and then Freeway Park Drive is also part of our project and how we incorporate that with our interchange. And I'll turn it over to Scott Lucas. Again, he's our project manager for Lochner, and he'll give the presentation. And as we go along, Mayor and Council or anybody else, if you have any questions, feel free just to chime in, and we'll try to answer the best we can. I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
alrighty. Can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you good, Scott.
Okay, thank you. So, as mentioned, we started this process back in 2018. First issue was come up with the purpose and need for the project. And so kind of the purposes and needs we have identified were to accommodate the 2050 travel demand, both along the corridor 56 South and for the interchange there at I-15. We also wanted to improve safety, reduce crashes, improve the safety there. We also wanted to better accommodate active transportation, bike lanes, pedestrians, etc. So those were identified as our purpose and need for the project. The environmental process is kind of shown at the top here. We have moved into the environmental phase that we're in right now. So after that will be final design and right-of-way and construction. In the environmental phase, probably down here, we did conduct a scoping meeting in the summer of 18. We developed project goals and objectives in the fall of 18. We also developed and screened alternatives in the winter of 19 and also into the spring. So basically we had come up with the project, the typical section of what the design would look like. And in the past 6 months, about 6 months ago, we went and reviewed this with UDOT leadership, and they talked to us about looking at ways we could reduce impacts along the corridor. Could we reduce the section and try to minimize some of the impacts? And so with that, we looked at our preferred section, and we looked at ways that we could reduce it some, but still meet the purpose of the project. So we did have a 112-foot width when we went to UDOT leadership, and after their request, we looked at ways we could reduce this. So we looked at reducing some of the shoulder areas and make sure we're maintaining bike lanes and a bike buffer. We reduced the median down to 14 feet. We also looked at the trail option where we know we have surplus property where we're acquiring properties, and maybe we wanted to incorporate a trail section through the corridor with the use of that extra property. So we came down to this 103 feet. It still met the purpose and need, and so we've been in the last few months analyzing the impacts of this narrow corridor and adjusting the document to show this corridor for 56 South. See if I can get
The next slide. So this is kind of where we are at with the preferred alternative, as you may know. As we looked at 56 South, we looked at we're going to the south, we're going to the north side, or we're going to meander between one side or another. And so what we came down to was that the south side, shifting things to the south, provide the least impacting to the community there, and allowed us to, we're moving forward with that as the preferred alternative. So we are widening 56 South from 3 lanes to 5 lanes. We are also adding multi-purpose trail along the south side. We are adding dual left turns at 3500 West. We are putting a grade separated trail bridge at the DNRG trail line to improve pedestrian bike safety. We are widening the bridge over the railroad and the front runner to carry the 5 lanes. We're also improving the intersection 1900 West so the traffic can flow through there more smoothly. We're doing several things there. We're adding dual left turn lanes in all directions. We are also adding dual right turn lanes going southbound to westbound. There's a lot of traffic that moves in that direction. We are also putting a 3rd travel lane east and west on 5600 South. So that's the improvements we propose on 1900 West. We're also widening the bridge over I-15 and the bridge of I-15 over 56 South to accommodate a SPUI interchange design, and I will show you that in a little more detail in a minute. We are trying to resolve the close spacing of Riverdale Road interchange to the north and 5600 South. So in order to resolve that closeness, we're going to put a CD road with a SPUI design interchange